Good afternoon almost. It is 11:24 and we are here at this time for the council time agenda, Wednesday, February 22, 2023. When we began this series of meetings today, starting with the Board of Health at 8:30 this morning, I remember saying at that time, well, welcome to this gorgeous, snowy morning. Wow, I had the chance to look outside. Maybe you did too at break. And it is unbelievably beautiful out there. So when these meetings have adjourned, be sure that you take a peek before you grab your lunch. It is really something. Well, we are going to start, of course, with public comment on agenda items only, realizing that our agenda today is quite abbreviated. Nevertheless, we accept public comment, of course, if there is any. Staff, are you seeing anyone in the hearing room or online?
I do not see either, Chair.
All right. Then we move to old business and approval of the minutes for February 15, 2023.
Motion to approve the minutes, Madam Chair.
Second,
Second.
any discussion, changes, updates, whatever? Hearing none, they stand approved as drafted. New business, July 4th. Well, we know that date, but why is it on our agenda?
Yes, so that is a scheduled hearing date, council meeting date on that Tuesday, and it is a holiday. So I'm asking council if you would like to meet the week before on the 27th of June, or the week after on July 11th, or the week of July 4th.
Well, let's scratch the week of July 4th.
I would prefer the week before, just in case there are issues coming up for the 4th.
I would agree with that.
That's a very good point. That makes three of us. We've got it for the week before.
Thank you.
And I believe I see Councilor Belcott chiming in there as well.
Yes, for some reason I wasn't able to unmute myself or start my video for a while, so I'm back. I agree, concur.
Thank you. Councilor reports. We had quite a few yesterday. Are there any that you wish to supplement at this time? Councilor Belcott, you went to so many meetings in the last week. Councilor Young, I believe that CREDC met in that time period. So do y'all have anything that you would like to report on?
I'll be back at the elections office Friday for the remainder of my training. So after that, but that's what's next for me.
Excellent. Anybody else?
Yes, the CREDC meeting was, we actually had quite a long conversation, but there was not very much action that took place that I'd have to report on. They are looking at potentially changing how long they meet and reducing the hours as a board. And they did speak about a couple potential companies that are investigating Clark County as a resource for, relocating or starting their business. So as things progress further on that, I will bring more forward to the council.
And, Madam Chair, could I ask a question? Because this is something that's irked me right from the very beginning. I mean, a lot of businesses don't want to be known that they're looking at Clark County. And so CREDC is sworn to secrecy and we'll never know who they are. What I'm always, and once again, if we had an economic policy person, they could weigh into this. What do we need to do to attract good businesses, good factories? What is it that they need? Someone that's interested in our schools or our geography and looking to relocate out of Silicon Valley in California. what do we need to do in order to entice them? That's, we need to recruit businesses, and that's not something I feel that we're doing very well in the county. So I don't know if that's ever been discussed. We had discussed that with CREDC a couple of years ago when we were looking at their budget and saying, what are we getting for this $100,000? But I don't know that we've ever really gotten anything further along the road as far as actively recruiting for
Well, they have
Clark
they have
County.
a committee that I think says a lot. It's called Land for Jobs. Because if we don't have land when we're communicating with potential employers, we miss out on a lot, don't we, Councilor Midvigi? Because many need acres in order to build. Some need to, when they take over an existing building, need to have space around that building. So that's a start point. Certainly, having people qualified to work there is huge for most of them. There are so many things. I don't mean to go on, but you know that that is one of my main concerns for getting jobs into this area. What else would others like to add? And by the way, CREDC is very much tuned into that particular concern.
One of the things that I think we might consider is and I can work with this and reach out to them, but, here we're talking about the comp plan, and they should be able to help us in many regards with some of the policy that might be hindering businesses locating here or opening here, or policies that we could tweak slightly to better enhance that. So some general, advice, and I don't know if they're, if they're following this entire process, but it sure would be nice to have somebody following that and just making sure we don't trip up on something that we aren't aware of or missing in that conversation. So I can reach out and have that discussion and report back if that is something that the council would be interested in.
Yes, thank you. That's important. And they
Sure.
do have a government affairs and policy committee, and they'll certainly be interested, among others, in tracking that and participating with you and council. I had the pleasure of working with CREDC for a couple of years, so am familiar with their approaches, and it's interesting to hear that they might be cutting back on board hours. I didn't know that, and that will make a difference in what they're able to tackle. So I don't know how that will change their board activity, but it may. Other reports from counselors. Work session requests, anything additional, Kathleen?
No, nothing for today. Thank you.
How about policy issues?
Chair, this is
Yes.
Sue Marshall. Hi. I have a couple of policy issues that I'm interested in, and one has come up today, but I've heard from a number of people in my district, and I think it's come up with various permitting, and that's notice. And I think it would be worthwhile to take, not just within the context of comp plan, but overall, take a look at notice and how well that's working, and if it needs to be changed, open it up to the community to have a chance to have some input. So that's something I'd like to pursue if others are interested.
Distances, 300, 500 foot?
Yeah, 300, 500 foot, but just to open it up and see, maybe it needs to be wider. Maybe there's certain issues that come up or development where you want to really expand it, a mile. I'm not sure what the specifics would be. I think some people have commented on that. But I think it'd be worthwhile to have a community conversation about it. If we could frame up what the issues are and take a look at that, it may alleviate some frustration with how we make decisions.
Yes, and that's a good point. I know April, I meet with her weekly, her and Max in community development, and they're actually already looking at that option of expanding it, but of course they're going to come back to council first during a council time discussion to see if it makes sense for you guys as well.
And that
That
would
would be,
include,
go ahead.
sorry.
Counselor.
Thank you. That would include an opportunity for the public to be engaged with it as well. Great, thanks.
Would that be a good way, Counselor Marshall, to kick off our discussion?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Would that be a good way with April's group to kick
Oh.
off the discussion that you're proposing?
That would be a very good way to kick that off.
Super. Okay. I concur with that and look forward to our doing that.
Chair,
Other-
I have another issue.
Go ahead.
And that came up with the comprehensive planning and something I've been thinking about for a while, but also have been approached by community members, and that's the idea of having an agricultural committee or commission that could really look at that whole arena, not just land, but what support the agricultural community and kind of next generation farmers looking at that and what we want to see in our community. There was a report, there was a group that was pulled together some years ago. I know 2008, I believe they produced a report which I thought was excellent, protecting agricultural land, had some very good recommendations. I think it would be great as a starter activity for an ag committee to take a look at that report, maybe update it, and make some recommendations going forward, and that could possibly be incorporated into the comprehensive plan.
That sounds like a good approach to me. I think who is selected in terms of their background for such a committee or commission is super important because, again, they'll come to the questions with very different perspectives, even representing rural lands or as opposed to urban holdings and everything that we talk about on the urban side. So this would be very good and very wide in its reach, I think.
The first thought that comes to mind is we may already have that committee in place. It was just constituted at Heritage, and I'm pretty sure the people that were selected, the stakeholders there, have almost exactly the background. Okay, so Sue just grimaced a little bit, so maybe they don't. But that committee may already be a start or a committee that could handle these the input we're looking for, or maybe not. Maybe it needs to be expanded.
I think they're among the cast of characters. I think they have a scope of work that they need to get through for starters, but it's a good idea.
Well, and this is kind of the point that who is on such a rural commission is very important because they do come with wide-ranging perspectives depending on their background. So that will be a challenge to put together. Kathleen, do you have perspectives on what already may have existed, like back even in 2008, that led to that report?
I have been given some information, I believe, from some of the community members who actually were proposing a commission before. So I do have some documentation that was done historically that we can use as a starting point for discussion.
I believe Oliver would have some information as well.
Maybe we could have that as a discussion item soon, if not at our next council meeting soon thereafter.
Chair,
Great.
real quick.
Yes.
I was just going to say, it looks like we have a consensus on this anyway, but I'm supportive of looking into that. I do feel like this is a very underrepresented group traditionally, and I would like to make sure that they have a voice in our community, so a stronger voice.
And in light of that too, you know, at the end of last year, before we had the new council come on board, an idea that I discussed over the last couple of years, you know, we have a pretty good legacy lands conservation program, and we had talked about whether or not we were looking at conserving, using those auspices, putting the overlays over agricultural land to conserve it. At the end of the year, I brought that up specifically for Heritage Farm. So, I mean, maybe, I don't know if that's a work session, maybe it is, to talk about putting this committee together, but as a component of it, because I think that is one tool we have where we can help preserve agriculture in our county, is conserve through that program. And from time to time, we did hear from our conservation team that, yes, they were working on that or looking at it, but I never heard anything more. I mean, there was no detail to it as to what we're actually looking to do in that regard. So, I mean, maybe that's a work request.
I'm thinking maybe council time first of what it would look like, and we can, during that same discussion, we can also discuss what is Heritage Farm do and what is Conservation Futures do, to see if there is any overlap and what is missing.
Just one thing to follow up, that one of the recommendations that was actually picked up was the idea of actually purchasing farmland to protect it. So I think that's what you're referring to with legacy land. And it's gone slowly, but there is work that's being done in coordination with Washington Farmland Trust to work with them and identify farmers who might want to participate in that. It'd be good to understand what our overall objectives are, what's our goal, because this was adopted, it was just kind of a one-off without really having a comprehensive plan in place in terms of the landscape and where agriculture fits into it.
Chair, I have one more comment that kind of came up here to me. This, I remember, pardon?
I just
Did you say
go ahead, Councilman.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, sorry. This, I believe this conversation took place before before us new 3 counselors being on the board, but I remember Councilor Medvedji speaking specifically about Heritage Farm and how we could protect that, and perhaps putting, I think he suggested like a covenant restriction on the land of some sort. And this, I think, is similar in nature, and I was curious whether that was, you know, whether we had, or whether you at the time had given staff the go-ahead to look into that, and if it is happening or if it's not.
I think the discussion was legal, can we do this? There wasn't any direction to do that, but I can follow up with Leslie to see if she's done any work on it.
Okay,
Thank
I would
you.
be supportive of looking into that for sure.
Well, obviously, I support it. The last council really just kind of said, hey, we're going to have a new council, and they never gave direction to the executive. So I mean, I'd like to do it, and I'd like to see what we're doing, what we've already talked about, and specifically on heritage. That was the low-hanging fruit. Let's do something right now for that.
Well, I believe we have a work session, don't we, on the Heritage Farm coming up? Oh, maybe not. It'll be out there.
Well, when Leslie has a response ready, she could help guide that discussion and the proper place, perhaps, for it to be on our agenda. Because there may be a healthy amount of discussion around covenant restrictions. So, other
Pardon me, Chair, I
comments?
have one last question, and it kind of, again, it goes back to this, one thing leads to the other, but is there a way that we could have like a running list of things that are currently in process, requests that we have made, and just kind of maybe a time anticipation or where it's at, just so we can kind of follow those things a little way. I don't know if there's a way we can do that.
Lindsay
Are
used to
you
keep
not
that list for
keeping
us.
that? I would suggest that each counselor actually does that, because you have your own list as well from all of your other contacts too. And I've found that if they're not fully integrated, it would be very easy to get lost in all of them, because there really are so many once you've been on the council for a good while, and you're already developing so many from the many organizations that you're attending. And then there's the constituents that we follow up on, and wow, it is a lengthy list and different. Yours is different from mine. So that's my thought.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm disagreeing with you, but I have a different perspective.
Go
Because it
ahead.
really does, and we're kind of being ambiguous right now, because I don't know that we have 3 votes to look at this legacy land and conserve agricultural land. But we used to get 3 votes, and Lindsay would keep a list of policy issues that all 3 of us, or 3 of us, decided on to move forward. I mean, we need some structure in order to have some weight against the executive to say, hey, we really want you to do this. I mean, do we have 3 votes on this? And it's a gap not having a policy advisor keeping track of what we have already had 3 yays on.
Yeah,
To move things
on
forward.
the policy part, absolutely. We still have that list that Lindsay, it actually hasn't changed that much over the last couple of years. And I am trying to find a way to incorporate that in a dashboard as well on the policy items. With regards to constituent follow-up or other, I mean, we have a lot of operational items here. I will look at anything that's more policy-driven, and also working with departments on their operations to ensure that we're doing best practices, and that, it's one of those things as an internal accountability, but also looking at how we're doing things. But yeah, there's a lot that happens here, and we have a lot of services. But yes, at the policy level, I don't think anything, I think Lindsay's list was broad enough, but we can tighten it down with next steps on it. That's the easy thing to do for the policy piece.
Counselor, you were asking if there were 3 who supported the covenant restriction out at Heritage. Is that correct?
Correct, and that's the segue off your email the other day, to make sure that we don't leave meetings in a vague state.
Right. Well, my recollection of that discussion was not that we had 3 for supporting covenant restrictions, but that we had 3 for Leslie finding out what exists now by way of working toward a covenant restriction, and what would we need to have if such a thing were in place. In other words, it was more fact finding rather than action. That's what I recall.
So, yeah, I would agree with that, but I guess I was trying to broaden it to include our legacy lands administrator, the staff that we've talked over the years with and brought it up from time to time.
I think
So you have the legal and the actual staff that does the work.
So I do see the connection and the importance of bringing all of that information to the table. So yeah, I didn't hear 3 yeses, nor did I hear 3 nos, but I do think it adds value. So I'm going to still work with staff to incorporate that as part of the discussion. And I think moving forward too on the policy issues, we'll start attaching that spreadsheet that Lindsay created every week, so that we can hit on anything, that we can talk about any updates, any direction, or if, nothing happens for the 3 months because of the legislature. So we can do that too. I think that will be helpful.
Anything else by way of policy issues that you would like to discuss, counselors?
Chair?
Yes.
I have a question. I'm not quite sure, related to an ag committee, what a next step might be.
I'm going to be putting that on a council time agenda to share information that historically has been brought forward. And I think it's going to be part of the same discussion with the Conservation Futures and Heritage Farm so that we can see how do the three work together and what direction you want to take the three in.
Thank you.
They are so interrelated, for sure. Okay, anything else for policy issues that you'd like to discuss, counselors? Hearing none, knowing that there are no executive sessions for today, this meeting of council time is adjourned. Thank you all, and best wishes out there in the snow.